won the Democratic primary for the United States Senate.
You want money on us? Money in your for U.S. Senate who hasn't taken a dime of corporate money and never will. Only one who's for Medicare for all. The only one who's for abolishing
I'm trying not to be cynical about it.
money and the men. And when they tell us that we
Yes, they are a Zionist band.
we won't back down. And so to all of our supporters here tonight, watching on TV, tomorrow we begin to mend fences. So for one last time for this primary, money out of? Money in your? Medicare for? Let's go win.
Money out of politics, money in your pocket. What does that mean? What does that even mean? This is kind of, I guess, the problem with, he's here to get money out of politics and into your pocket, don't you know? Well, that's a solid policy position, isn't it, comrades? You know, that's kind of always the problem with the bourgeois Democrats, isn't it? And you can say, it's easy to say, well, he didn't take corporate money, so that proves that he's an anti-bourgeois Democrat, right? But how can that be possible? You don't have to take money from the corporate donors for it to still serve imperialism, for it to still serve the corporations. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing for them, even more important than like whatever profits they get off of people in the United States, is the much larger amount of profits that they get off of the rest of the world through the super profits of imperialism. And so within the imperialist ruling class, within the bourgeoisie, in the capitalists, you have essentially you essentially have it is no PAC money. He took small donations. He works for the people. He doesn't owe anyone anything. He works for us. No, that's literally not how it works. You see, in the United States, you don't have the right to recall. You don't have the type of democratic process that would allow this person to actually work for you. And like, again, running on sloganeering doesn't do that. Here's I mean, I guess the ironic thing is, at the end of the day, so this is someone who doesn't take PAC money, doesn't take corporate money, right? Right? Here's the funny part, though, but is still doing their part to keep imperialism safe. So in a way, he's just doing it for the love of the game. You know? Not really, though, because I get that he's not actually conscious of imperialism. We're gonna get to that, comrade. Please be patient. This is gonna be a process. But let me just say that we are going to demonstrate how Dr. Abdul, whether consciously or unconsciously, still supports imperialism. He is against money for wars. He wants money to serve our communities. That's incorrect. We're going to look at his platform. He is against unaccountable military funding. He is not against military funding. That's false. In fact, he wants to, you know, his platform. His platform is right here in front of me. And it also includes supporting Ukraine, supporting military aid to Ukraine, condemning the Russian invasion, and supporting sanctions on the Russian war machine, quote unquote. That is continuing support for imperialism, comrade. That is not ending ending money for war that is still going to be giving billions of dollars. No new wars. Oh, okay. So suddenly the goalpost has changed. I got it. You have to finish what has started. Wow. Kotsky, is that you? Is that you, Kotsky? No. God, no. You don't have to finish what was started. Why would US imperialism have to finish a proxy war to destroy Russia that it started? This chatter just said the US has to finish. Because let's get this straight, right? The proxy war in Ukraine is a war that exists to destroy Russia and break it up into a fucking balkanize it into multiple little banana republics that it can easily control. We gotta finish it, this chatter says. Well, we'll wait for the chatter to get out. Incredible. Right? Like the literal goal of the proxy war is to destroy Russia. And this chatter is saying, "Oh, we got to finish what we start." Chatter said we got to destroy Russia, actually. Incredible. Yeah. No new wars, only current war. That's ridiculous. That's nonsense. I mean, he doesn't though, because we will get to that as well. Because I'll tell you right now, another problem is his position on Taiwan as well. I'm sure you can imagine that when we get to it. Yes, I will make his platform bigger. I want to work up to the platform itself, though. I want to work up to the platform itself. I'll just point out that Taiwan is also a problem with this guy as well. Yeah, I mean, look, we're Leninists. We take the Leninist position that we're not for imperialism finishing its war. We're for imperialism ending its war. Don't worry, abortion now. My chat can help you as well. My chat will be able to help as well. Right, chatters? You'll take a cue from Larry. You know the way Larry explains things to people. I trust y'all. I trust y'all. Is chatter real? I don't know. That's why I'm gonna kind of trust y'all to take the ball from here. I'll help if need. I'll step in if need be, but I'm gonna kind of keep going with this and not focus on the chatter so much. They're about to be out of ad hell. At least that particular chatter. Other chatters feel free to speak up. I just don't want the stream to be about one person. So look, just like that Cat A one, say a bunch of nice stuff for local, then randomly be some warmonger or some other part of the world. Yeah, and here's the problem with this strategy, I will just say right off the bat. The strategy of focusing first on local and then on imperialism doesn't work. You guys can be nihilists. I need hope we can change. I'm still listening to stupid ads. Look, if you don't want ads, you can subscribe to the channel. It's kind of as simple as that, you know? Otherwise, the ads help me. There's two ways that I can earn enough from Twitch. One of those ways is through ads, the other way is if comrades support me through subs and gift subs and bits. Okay? Yeah, now it's interesting that you're accusing us of being nihilists though, because I will say that I would go on a limb here and say none of us are nihilists. It's just simply that we don't look to electoral temporary reforms as the thing to celebrate. I'm not going to subscribe. I was watching You Gopnik and woke up here. All right. That's great. But I'm just pointing out this is good insofar as it brings the masses up to a new stage, a new what the libs will sometimes call overton window that allows them to readily more in practice see the limitations of this type of reformist strategy. But it, like I always stress, it is up for Marxist Leninists to to be criticizing the problems with reformism and entryism from the left, just like they were back during Bernie and other times. I do understand. I'm saying that I'm saying fellow tag tuber, you got Nick. Okay, well this anyway, I'm not going to cater my whole stream to you, random chatter. If you have a particular concern other than, what are you doing? Americans always say that. What are you doing? If you have an actual question or something useful to say, feel free. Myself or my chat will be happy to help. The typical American, well, what are you doing? I'm streaming, as you can see. You know? I'm not a lib. You're responding to what claim? Money out of politics. But yeah, and what I'm saying is money out of politics is a useless slogan that means nothing. I get that you tried to explain it to me, but you didn't make it mean anything different. It's still a meaningless slogan. It's not an actual policy. That's what I'm saying. You guys piled up on me. I mean, you could sit back and listen perhaps to what we're talking about. Or you could continue to try and center the entire stream around yourself, you know? Good God, the liberals are bad today. What the hell? Okay. I'm just gonna ignore I'm just gonna let chat handle any questions that this chatter has, and we'll continue on, okay? The liberals are rampant because I'm critical of this person. Not in a way to say that they're like I haven't even started. And like look at what we're getting already. Incredible. All I'm pointing out is that money out of politics is not a concrete policy. It doesn't describe the actual thing that he's going to do. Like you're like saying he's going to take money out of this and that and this. It doesn't, there's still going to be money in politics. Money is still going to be used to fund various things, useful and positive things, and negative and bad things. So, this is why I'm saying the whole slogan of money out of politics is very much a typical capitalist bourgeois politician like sloganeering nothing burger. Like that's literally what it is. Like Stalin himself said, the bourgeois Democrats have always advanced and still advance all sorts of slogans in order to deceive the people, such as money out of politics, money in your pocket. What does money in your pocket mean if the prices are still getting worse and worse, or if there's no jobs left in your country because imperialism is still continuing, is still developing, right? What does that mean? What does money in your pocket mean? How is it any different than, say, the strategy of like Andrew Yang and like the general income or whatever? Right? That you can't just look at this thing in abstract. The point is to test their sincerity, to compare their words with their deeds, not to be satisfied with idealistic or charlatan phrases, but to get down to the class reality. So let's see if we, as Marxist Leninists here, on this very niche stream, here on the Twitch streaming space, where most political streams are focused on celebrating this without any critical examination whatsoever, on a platform that focuses entirely on electoral politics as the only means of change, we're going to look at this from a different angle, from a Marxist-Leninist angle. You're welcome to come along with us and learn about this perspective. And you're even welcome to put your questions and concerns into chat. I do invite you to actually listen to what is being said, though. So first of all, we have everybody's celebrating this already. We have Gavin Newsom. Who doesn't love Gavin Newsom, right? Congratulations. Abdul, Trump and the GOP are trying everything to rig the rules and silence voters. That happens every fucking presidency, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican. They both fucking change voting lines and shit, right? They both play that game. But they can't stop a Democratic Party united around working people and accountability. On to November. Let's take our country back. Gavin Newsom and him arm in arm taking the country back, right? There you go. Does that give us a hint? Maybe about the class reality here versus the charlatan phrases? We also have Bernie Sanders endorsing as well. We all know how much Bernie Sanders loves the working people. Long experience with Bernie Sanders, no? Right? Bernie Sanders, who supported bombing fucking Yugoslavia for 80 days and 80 nights. Oh yeah, okay, well, he's got his endorsement as well. Clearly, that's a good sign, right? Congratulations to Will Lawrence, Donovan McKinney, and Dr. Abdul El-Sayed on their historic victories last night. Abdul took on the entire billionaire class, faced more than 60 million in spending against him, and won. Now let's beat Mike Rogers and take back the Senate. So why might the Democratic Party be more tolerant of this, do you think, comrades? Okay, even though he's not directly taking that corporate money, again, in what ways does preserving imperialism help the bourgeoisie? Something that we have to realize is the bourgeoisie, the billionaire class, as Bernie Sanders is putting it here, is not just this single mass with one mind, right? They're not perfectly united. They're mostly united on wanting to keep imperialism safe, on wanting to keep imperialism going. Although there's even a segment that think that they would like to end that as well and just go back to an old school capitalism. This is represented by like the libertarians and the fucking ANCAPs and whatever else. Okay, so you have to understand that the bourgeoisie aren't just a monolith. They're a warring band of brothers. You have some that think the Trump strategy is the best way to preserve imperialism. You have ones that think this other way in the Republicans is the way to do it. You have some that think what Hassan would call the centrist or the corporate Democrats. Some think that that's the best way. And then, believe it or not, you even have a segment of the imperialists who are thinking if we don't allow these DSA people, these if we don't try and rescue the image of the DNC, then we're gonna lose everything. So like you have to understand, there's these different segments of the bourgeoisie. Significant portions would be willing to say, yes, in order to save imperialism, we should give more crumbs to the people here, as much as possible within the narrow confines. Now the problem is with the current stage that I think like imperialism and counter-imperialist struggle is at, I think that you would be very hard pressed, even with getting these people in, to see something like a New Deal happen again. Right? I think that you would see some vehement fighting and targeting, some boosting of Republicans. And yeah, especially with the coming financial crisis. And I think that is one of the key factors as well.
But they can't, right?
But this, in my opinion, this is the reason why this is tolerated is again to rescue the Democratic Party. Mama, welcome in, welcome in. Bugga, don't be attacking the chords. It's not for you. Welcome in, Mama Mila. Thank you so much for raiding in. Everybody go follow Mama on all the platforms. We're just we're talking about Dr. Abdul El Sayed and the win in Michigan. So, here we go. Bernie Sanders. Abdul took on the entire billionaire class. Bernie says it. Bernie would know. Meow meow, the kittens are here. Welcome in. The bourgeoisie think tanks also knows that friendly conflicts between capitalists like this only further strengthens their class power. Yes. Well, this is the thing. This helps give the legitimacy to the liberal democracy that allows it to be so secure, that makes it the toughest shell of capitalist hegemony to break, as Lenin himself even like pointed out, right? Like that is what, because you don't actually have a democracy. And then, okay, so let's see what the pundits are saying about it. Here, this is a guy on C-SPAN, Adam Green. Let's see what he says about it.
Michigan is ground zero in the battle for the future of the Democratic Party. What we have here are two competing theories of the case for electability in the general election.
Electability.
And we consider this a chips on the table moment. One theory of the case, the Chuck Schumer theory of the case, is that the best way to be electable in a swing state is to have a status quo politician. In this case, Haley Stevens, Congresswoman, whose campaign is basically being bankrolled to the tune of $60 million by APAC, crypto, big insurance, big pharma, big energy companies. And for some reason, that's supposed to appeal.
And like I was saying, the thing that Marxist Lenin should take away from this is that's a signal about where the masses are. That they are fed up with those things, right? That we should understand that and then help them connect the dots. Not say, oh, well, the masses aren't ready to hear about how then Palestine connects to Ukraine, or et cetera, et cetera. We got to wait for them to be more conscious of that. No, it's our job as revolutionaries to make them more conscious, which means we have to connect it and point out why it's not Israel controlling America, but America controlling Israel. And then it's connected the same way to Ukraine, through Ukraine controlling. Right? We can't just sit here and be quiet about that because the masses won't become conscious of that on their own. It's only through us critiquing these shortcomings that they will become conscious of this. And it's a little bit at a time, right? It's at some points, it feels like we're screaming into the void and only reaching a couple people at a time. The benefit, I will say, for us, of if a bunch of these people now get elected after the experience of Trump, if now we get a bunch of DSA members that get elected in, and there isn't really the fundamental change that helps people's everyday lives, that will be beneficial to us, right? Because now people will be learning again firsthand the limitations of working under these reformist strategies. But that will only be true, and that will only be a constructive experience for them if Marxist Leninists are critiquing this strategy from the left. Because if we don't do that, the masses we know are headed to a revolution. They're headed to revolt, I should say. Whether that will be a revolution or whether they will unconsciously support counter-revolution is up to revolutionaries to effect change on, to prevent them from going towards supporting the fascism, right? That's our job. And we have to understand that addressing Israel and AIPAC, but not really addressing the imperialist machine that created Israel and has got it to this point where even Israel is saying, perhaps we could be by ourselves and buy our own weapons now on the free market, right? Now that it's at this stage. So we have to realize that in this situation, it's not really like just breaking away from Israel and then relating to it like it's any other country isn't going to be enough. And then there's still Ukraine, there's still Sudan, there's which apparently some chatters think we got to finish the wars that we already started. Okay, so the US has to continue bombing Sudan. The US has to continue bombing Venezuela then, I guess. Invading Cuba, making it's still at war again on DPRK as well, so I guess we'd have to continue on that war and those sanctions. And Russia. No new wars, just all the endless wars that are already going, right? Valora is turning out to be really fun. That's cool. Glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. Yeah, the dozens of wars that are going, but no new ones. Okay?
Pharma, big energy companies. And for some reason,
So again, it represents what this represents, I guess, to put it very bluntly, is it represents not a defeat of the bourgeoisie, but rather it represents a victory of a certain faction of the bourgeoisie. Does that make sense?
that's supposed to appeal to independent voters who don't like either political party and think they're both bought and paid for.
Like, yeah, it's supposed to. Exactly. He said it right there. This is supposed to appeal to independent voters, and that's what and that's why this is being tolerated by the Democrats as well. Even by like the larger establishment itself of the Democrats in a sense. The reason why it's being tolerated to the degree that it is because of that.
Theory of the case is that Dr. Abdul El
They see it potentially as a way. I mean, we already know voting turnouts are abysmal, but it's a way to take those third party voters and bring them back to the Democratic Party is their hope, right? It's a rescue job. It's a rescue job for the Democratic Party. And not that voting third party is the answer either. We need to organize an alternative organization that can participate in elections wherever possible, but not for the purpose of winning the election, but for the purpose of making the party more visible and growing our own movement so that we can pool more resources together and build our own institutions.
Said is a shake up the system economic fighter. People believe him when he says he wants to fight to get money out of politics, put money in people's pockets, and fight for Medicare for all. And we believe that.
I mean, am I wrong in thinking that Obama ran on like Medicare for all? Wasn't that a thing, or no? Is that a false memory of mine?
Tonight is a Democratic Party referendum on that question. We believe that if Abdul El-Sayed defeats $60 million of outside spending, it will send a signal to every Democratic politician across the country that it is okay
Oh, yeah, yeah, I'll turn him up a little bit. He's like, this clip is a little quiet. Hold on. There.
Okay to cross very powerful interests because you can still win if the people are on your side. That is what is needed, especially at this moment as we're fighting Donald Trump. And then in November,
Especially as we're fighting Donald Trump. See, so there's two things. Do you see what it's done here? The scapegoat of capitalism and imperialism is instead centered on Donald Trump, AIPAC, and Israel. It's a three-pronged attack of the bourgeoisie against revolution. Against the revolutionary forces. Against the revolutionary consciousness of the people. See, the people are wandering off into reality. And the bourgeoisie see this. And that's why they're a little more tolerant of this position. Because they have to try and wrangle the people back into the false consciousness of the continuing imperialist order. And what we have to do is point out how the primary problem isn't capitalism at home, right? But the primary problem, why no addressing of these internal capitalist problems will ever be a permanent solution until we actually address imperialism. Imperialism being the primary contradiction that is actually threatening all life on Earth. That's the thing that's making the prices go up no matter what candidate gets elected. It's literally the Carney rescue job. Yes, exactly. It's the Carney rescue job all over again.
It sends a really important message.
Only on the scale of American politics.
On the campaign trail, scared, well-meaning electability voters who just don't want to mess things up in 2028 as they select a presidential contender in 27-28. And we hope that they realize, oh, it's okay to vote for someone inspiring. Because yes, you can have a former CIA operative named Melissa Slotkin in a place like Michigan, but you can also have a guy named Abdul El-Sayed who is fighting for Medicare for all and fighting to shake up the system. So that is our goal.
Shake up the system.
The stakes could not be
shake up the system. ID poll, shake up the system. What do you think of the core source of imperialism? What do you think is the core source of imperialism? For-profit military-industrial complex? I mean, the core, like, the ultimate core source of it is individualism. Which comes out of, like, the class cleavage of society, right? Those two things that are married together. The material reality of class cleavage paired with the ideological justification of that material reality in the form of individualism. Those are the two problems. That's why we need collectivism. And again, that's why reformism doesn't change an individualist society into a collectivist-based one. So, okay, so now we heard from the liberal pundits. Here's someone who must be a little bit more left, right? Founding editor of Geese magazine. I don't even know what that is. A review of American communism. A review of American communism. All right. And so Jay Ryder says, if you're a socialist and you think now is the time to start drawing hard divisions between us and the movement that elected Abdul. What does that mean? This is what I guess I always, like, the question that comes up for me. Not change the system, not build a new system, just shake the current one. Yeah, shake it a little more coconuts come down and, some will hit people's heads, best gay, right? Some will hit people's heads, some will kill some people, but some people will get some more coconuts. And won't that be good? Right? Isn't that wonderful? We gotta view the paths of reform and revolution through their dialectic. The struggle for reform and sometimes their gains are causes for revolution, and the struggle for revolution produces the pressure needed for reform. Sure, big empathy. I don't disagree with you. I do think, though, that means that us revolutionaries who are in the minority of society, always, perpetually, why we have to be the ones, why I think this is wrong, actually. Why it's not drawing a hard division between us and the movement that elected Abdul. It's us pointing out that there is a division between what Abdul's politics represent materially and what the people actually want. What he's going to be able to express in practice versus what versus what the people actually want, even though they don't have the ability to express it fully, lacking, the complete context of like the interrelations of imperialism, etc. Yeah, it's absolutely up to us to understand that, which is why I think this person is wrong. It's only a minority of us revolutionaries, who are conscious of this fact to begin with. So if we sit around with our arms crossed and we're like, well, no, we don't want to draw any division. We don't want to draw any delineating line between us and these dem socks. Then what you're doing is you're worshiping spontaneity, because you're expecting the masses to be conscious of things that you became conscious of through reading books or through working with comrades or through learning in practice and somebody else talking to you, etc. Right? I don't see how individualism causes imperialism. Individualism is the source that leads to infinite greed, that justifies the restricting of other people's independence for the sake of the individual greed of somebody else. That's the entire ideological spiritual justification of that. And then this person says socialism can never be consolidated if we don't have an anti-establishment congressional faction to cohere around. Why? Is a revolution going to be passed in Congress? Again, I just don't understand so we're not allowed to discuss differences because that might, draw a hard line or whatever it is, which I don't understand. We align morally. The thing that people don't realize is different between us and the Democratic Socialists is that we have a different strategy. But the minute you try to talk about that different strategy, a bunch of the actual Democratic Socialists and the reformists will come out of the woodwork and go, you're not letting us do our thing. How? We're letting you do your thing. If your thing is so untenable that just critiquing it causes it to fall apart, then what good is it? It's the whole reason why we point out the limitation of reformism for us is because we understand that reformism has a limitation and the people will run up into that limitation and then they will revolt in one way or the other. Either they will align with reactionary forces in revolting of the class oppression under new lines that revolutionizes that class oppression, or they align with the revolutionary forces and build an alternative with us. Yeah, I mean that's what's funny, right? Think about the way the Bolsheviks talked about the Duma. They weren't about they were about having themselves in the Duma, but they were also just as readily willing to boycott the Duma when that made the most sense in a particular instance. As we know, right? Lenin and Stalin both. They absolutely would use the Duma when their party could have candidates in there doing things. At the same time, they would just as readily boycott the Duma and call for the workers to boycott the Duma. They never shied away from that either. Because it's not just about letting them do their thing. It's about trying to, because their thing, Democratic Socialist thing, is tailing the masses, expecting the Overton window to spontaneously shift enough that they will just vote in socialism in the center of the empire. Doesn't help that after the Zoran craze, a lot of libs started to identify with Demsoc ideology. There was, I remember some months ago, a shit lib in the DSA who leaked some info about other members because he wanted to protect the org from tankies. Yeah, and I think you'll see that type of thing accelerate in there as well. I think you will absolutely see that accelerate. Well, we're in the party building moment. We're in the moment where we got to get people organized as much as possible. You see how hard it is right now to convince the people who are still fooled by democratic socialism to organize independently, not just to vote for like a third party, but to pool resources towards building alternative institutions. But that's what we have to do. The electoral gains will never be it, ever. And we're gonna look and see. We're gonna figure out for ourselves: is Abdul an anti-establishment candidate? Why don't we examine this further and decide for ourselves if they're anti-establishment? Okay, we'll get to the bottom of that. I promise you by the end of this. Let's hear what James, Good Vibe Politics, says about this instance.
Israel might have been in her dream. Israel might have been in her dreams, but it seems as if Abdul al-Sayed was in her nightmares. Haley Stevens and AIPAC have lost the Michigan Senate race.
Those numbers, though. I mean, even still, you know, when I look at this, I just want to say a lot of people are saying, look, we beat the AIPAC, blah, blah, blah. I'm explaining why beating AIPAC isn't, like, it'll be a thorn in the side of some, but even Israel is saying we don't need the US aid anymore. We're ready to just buy the weapons on the free market like the other imperialist fucking powers do, right? Is he more or less anti-establishment than Count Binface? I want probably equal. He's probably about equal to Count Binface on the establishment front. What I see when I see these numbers, though, I gotta say, is abysmal turnout, right? How many fucking people are in Michigan? This is what? This is 684,000 and 656,000. And this is a swing states that could go either way, so the Republican must be fairly close to the same. How many fucking people are there? 10 million people in Michigan? They have a little less than 8 million registered voters. So, like, you know what I'm saying? When I see numbers like this, again, the one thing I'm thinking is, man, people are being more and more disenfranchised, aren't they? Because the turnovers are abysmal, even for this very hyped, very much like lauded election that was happening. You look at these numbers, and it is pretty actually abysmal. And I bet the actual election itself won't be that much better.
Race.
We'll see.
It's as if Abdul al-Sayed was in her nightmares. Haley Stevens and AIPAC have lost the Michigan Senate race.
Israel comes to me in my dreams.
Shut the fuck up.
Creepy.
Shut the fuck up. Shut up.
It's a fairly historic moment for Michigan, as Abdul al-Sayed is now officially being declared by several outlets as having won the Senate race in Michigan after AIPAC spent more than $30 million backing his opponent, Haley Stevens. The race,
And
which large
again, I think that is a little bit overstated in my mind as well. Like, sure. I mean, that is what the 70 million does. Attacks ads just repress turnout. It's not but it's not the attack ads that's repressing the turnout. Big Agathy, I gotta say. I don't think it's attack ads in my estimation. The abysmal turnout is because people have experienced for generations both parties, while their actual material conditions getting worse and worse. The groceries going up, the rent prices going up, the wages not coinciding with the price of the goods and the rent and all of that shit. That's why the fucking turnouts are bad. Not because of attack ads. Whatever role attack ads play in it, I think, is incredibly minuscule compared to the role that literally nothing changing for generations and generations plays in it. Because at the end of the day, you can't just reform American democracy. And the people are understanding that, because each time we even have gains like this, you mark my words, I hate to say it, but the tankies are always right. And I've experienced it for like 20 years now. And when we get these people in, you'll run up against the same limitations and disenfranchisement, and you'll have Obama 2.0, but it'll have to be even shorter this time and even more restrictive this time. Because the fucking the super profits of imperialism are always getting worse and worse. Because other countries are not tolerating American imperialism. Africa is rising up. South America is rising up. Those super profits of imperialism are getting worse and worse. And one thing that the bourgeoisie cannot do is tolerate the. This is why I've said before, the end result of this type of thing, of constant reforms, is just a fascism that comes back more and more violently. Fascism doesn't go away, it just kind of exports itself for a while, I guess a little bit more, onto brown and black people, into on native people internally, and overseas as well. And then once it's gathered sufficient strength, once labor has been sufficiently disarmed for like 5 years, then it can come back and be even worse than last time. It's the strategy of American fascism that we have seen for decades and decades now. And the reason why there's more and more communists is because communists like us have been organizing, not because of democratic socialists. They play their role, but that's because democratic socialists are constantly reproduced by the false consciousness of capitalism. We need more revolutionaries to actually effect that permanent change. And we do that by pointing out the difference between us and our comrades on the left. Because the people that we're most likely to reach are those people who already recognize that the overt fascists are our enemies. It's these people who have a false consciousness that allows the fascists to rise that we need to reach. As many of them as possible. You know? Oh God. Dorian. No offense to your thing being deleted, but Larry's trying to turn over a new leaf. It was a very funny comment. I just want you to know that I found it a very funny comment. I'm trying to turn over a new leaf on a certain front and let chatters make their own conclusions about people outside the tank tube sphere. 54 years, myself under this colonial project will never change. Only way forward is land back and work together for a better world. Exactly, Sue. Exactly. Okay, I want to let's hear the rest of what Good Vibe says about this moment. I love this guy. He reminds me of David Tavares, but sometimes his takes make me go, ugh, you know? But I like the guy. He reminds me of David.
Michigan, as Abdul al-Sayed is now officially being declared by several outlets as having won the Senate race in Michigan after AIPAC spent more than $30 million backing his opponent, Haley Stevens. The race, which largely centered around Palestine, was one that many progressives across the country were deeming a litmus test for further races going into 2027 and 2028. Simultaneously, it was a race that AIPAC needed to win, and a race that AIPAC put a ton of resources into, as Haley Stevens ran a campaign that was deeply Islamophobic and deeply ridiculous. Now, Haley Stevens didn't spend a lot of time.
Those parts are true, although AIPAC needing to win it again, I'm not so sure about that. We'll look at that in a bit. In a minute.
Fucking terrible. What Haley Stevens did instead is what you'd expect.
They want to. Don't get me wrong. They want to.
In AIPAC funding, she tried to paint Abdul as being a threat, as being a misogynist, and being someone who just hated the Jewish people. But one thing is resoundingly clear tonight: the voters of Michigan did not buy into the bullshit. Instead, they held the line, voted for a progressive who's pro-Palestine, and set him up to possibly win a general election.
And right there, that is the thing that I'm saying that we Marxist-Leninists should recognize about it. Is that what it is a gauge of where the masses are. The masses did reject that racist, Islamophobic rhetoric, and they voted, it's true, for Abdul, somebody who at least professed support for Palestinian people, although he has condemned the resistance, but he has expressed support for Palestinian people and has condemned particular things that Israel is doing, right? So there is that, and we should recognize that is, yes, though there is a mass support for that position. So then what our conclusion for that, I guess, needs to be, so let's take those understandings and let's connect that to the larger understanding of imperialism. So it's not just this cartoonish AIPAC is controlling American politics and Israel drug us into the Iranian war, right? Let's correct that understanding to actually understand how Marxism-Leninism is. Also weird how it's the only global south that should disrupt capital and organize a meaningful way to suggest to what Bolivians did to build their movement in America. They will look at you like you are like not wanting to put in the effort. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. This is the thing I always say. When people accuse us of not of being nihilistic or something about it, we're just talking about a different strategy. We're all of us, I reckon, are very optimistic. We're just optimistic about the prospects of, again, this showing where the American people are headed ideologically, that they are against Islamophobia, that they are against war. They just don't quite completely understand the strategy there. So let's keep helping them get there. Let's keep pushing that consciousness further. We can't do that by tailing the masses. We have to understand where the masses are going.
All of this makes me incredibly happy and should make you happy too, because though Abdul is not a socialist, is not someone who I find myself entirely ideologically aligned with, he is pissing off all of the worst people you know.
And see that, again, make me happy. It makes me I don't want to just say it like that because I feel like that's a bit redundant, right? It makes me happy insofar as, again, it gives a direct experience to the millions of people who are supporting him, reading into it more than it is, like with Mamdani. And a bunch of those people will be ready to then, accept a higher level of revolutionary consciousness. So it does make me happy in that regard. At the same time, it doesn't make me happy because it's a way for imperialism to try and prolong itself while it continues to commit the deaths of millions of people. Some might say, oh, he just doesn't want new wars. He just wants to finish the wars that are going on. Well, that means millions of lives. So that's not acceptable to me.
AIPAC to burn tens of millions of dollars on a lost campaign. AIPAC spent that money hoping to maintain a tired and outdated status quo, hoping that Americans would vote in yet another pro-Israel politician when they had a better alternative at the table. But the voters of Michigan said, fuck that. Rather going for the pro-Palestine progressive, someone who has an actual vision that goes beyond sending more bombs and bullets to a genocidal settler colony.
But that part's not entirely true. He's against sending bombs to Israel unconditionally, but he's not against sending weapons to Ukraine, which is slaughtering its own people.
To a genocidal settler colony. What happened tonight proved that Palestine is not still just a litmus test for large swaths of the American electorate, but is actually electorally viable even in critical swing states. It's a blow to AIPAC and also a blow to countless establishment figures that were trying desperately to back Stevens even up to the last minute. But yeah, a big win tonight in Michigan. Now we prepare for the general election. That being said, as always, fuck AIPAC, free Palestine, salamu alaikum, and have a great day.
So, I mean, again, I just don't celebrate it as a big win in that way, I guess. It's a win it's a win in that now it's time for Marxist-Leninists to buckle down and get to work. But at the same time, it's not a win because it's a win for just another particular bourgeois faction that sees democratic socialism as the tolerable faction of the left that will allow them to continue imperialism, that will allow them to preserve imperialism, which is more important than AIPAC. Or even the direct specific relations that it has with Israel. It can rework those. Israel is already ready to do that, right? Like right here, it's already been reported not that long ago. The end to US military aid to Israel may be closer than you think. Benjamin Netanyahu's decision to walk away from US assistance says a lot about the shifting dynamics. Do you see that there's a timing there, maybe? With the bourgeoisie and the Democrats, more particularly, being tolerant of someone saying we need to get the AIPAC out, we need to stop aid to Israel at the same time after Israel's been made, able to sustain itself, essentially, to keep its genocide going by itself through trading on the international market and with its other imperialist allies in other ways, rather than being entirely propped up the way that it has been by the US. So it's still going to do that, just through a more circuitous fucking route is all that would happen. I would say that is it cause and effect. Israel has no choice but to adapt to no more free money. That is a material improvement? How? In what way is that a material improvement to who? They're still getting the same weapons. Like, what? I don't understand that comment. They're literally saying they can do this because they can get the same weapons. The resources to do their crimes are more strained. Comrade, they control the bourgeoisie controls the resources. It's not that much more strained. It's like some extra steps. If anything, they've been linked, like Dave says, if anything, it hasn't improved anything at all. It's the exact same amount of weapons go through a more circuitous route to them. What's the difference? Okay, so now the US will just give the money to Ukraine, and Ukraine will give the money to Israel. Oh yeah, big material difference there. Abdul is a Rhodes Scholar, a public health administrator, an expert, a brilliant politician. What, other than his identity and opposition to a blank check for Israel, shared by most voters, are you worried about? This person asked. Well, let's find out. Let's see the red flags. We'll start with this one. The Democrats posting, Michigan, let's win this. Again, much more tolerable than they were about Bernie in this position. For a reason. They'd have to cut trade to cause actual material change to Israel, but Israel is tying itself to German arms companies. Exactly, Agent. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. They're not just gonna, the imperialists aren't unconscious beings. They strategize. They do meeting rooms. Right? Call me a conspiracy theorist, but the imperialists do meet in rooms. And they prepare for things like this. And they realize, now we can allow for a little bit more left-sounding fucking rhetoric that is being strongly demanded by people because we have prepared this revolutionizing of the various relations of production relations of politics under capitalism in order to keep it going a little bit longer. It's not conspiracy if it's true. That's not true. Conspiracy is that's just a thing that liberals say. Conspiracy can be true, and in fact, it's a concept in law. And they do it all the time. They're meeting in golf fucking They're meeting on the golf courses and in the fucking board meetings and everywhere else. Jurgen Larson, welcome in. So here, right here, this little clip from Bernie tells us, I think, pretty clearly, like I'm trying to point out, where Abdul is at politically. Right here. What faction he represents here.
In my view, Donald Trump is the most dangerous president in the history of this country.
Come on. Donald Trump is the most dangerous president in the history of this country. Try George Washington. You know, the founder of the genocidal project, maybe?
In my view, Donald Trump is the most dangerous president in the history of this country. He's an authoritarian. He's a kleptocrat. He's corrupt. He has gotten us into a horrible war, etc., etc. And my job as a United States Senator is to do everything that I can to fight back against those disastrous policies. So that's number one. And I'll work with anybody to stop Trump's terrible policies against working families, the environment, etc. But number two, when I look at what's going on in America, I see people wanting an alternative to Trump. And it requires one, Simone, being more than just anti-Trump. People want to know, what are you going to do for me? If you guys take control of the House and the Senate, do you have an agenda other than being anti-Trump? And the candidates that we are supporting say, you know what? Healthcare is a human right. We should not be the only major country.
Oh, well, thank God they say healthcare is a human right. That'll fix it. You see what I mean about the sloganeering? They say healthcare is a human right.
Healthcare to all people.
Well,
you know what? We should raise
again. Obama said
the
that.
minimum wage to a living wage. We should get billionaires out of politics. We should, at a time of massive, unprecedented economic inequality today, income and wealth inequality, yeah, you got to demand that the billionaires start paying their fair share of
the billionaires pay their fair share.
Taxes. We're the wealthiest country in the history of the world. We can provide wealth for all of our people. And I think out there's a hunger.
And again, I just noticed not a single mention of imperialism. We just need to redistribute the spoils of imperialism a little more effectively.
That kind of belief that as a great nation, we don't have to have the highest rate of childhood poverty of any
major Space Invader, welcome in. We are.
So what we are trying to do, Simone, is rebuild the Democratic Party and end this absurdity of having party leadership simply going out to wealthy people.
Okay, I don't know why my sound alerts aren't playing. I will smoke one in a minute.
That's not our politics. Our politics is grassroots politics. Right now in Michigan, I can tell you that El Sayed has thousands and thousands and thousands of volunteers knocking on doors, bringing new people into the political process. That's how you reform the Democratic Party. And by the way, that's how you save democracy.
That's how you save democracy. See, again, that's how you save democracy. That's how they're going to save the neoliberal democracy. That's what it's all about, comrades. Whether they're conscious of it or not, I get that Abdul really wants to serve the people. He really wants to do all these good things for the people. But what I'm pointing out is that you can't save a democracy that doesn't exist. The saving of the liberal bourgeois democracy is what allows imperialism to continue on, which is exactly what allows the rich to get richer and the poor to get poorer. Some people might get some crumbs in the form of various fucking measures and policies, but overall, the rich will be getting richer and the poor will be getting poorer. That's the intrinsic law of capitalism. The problem is, of course, Al Sayed won't understand that. Let's hear another clip here. Let's hear if let's see what the class reality is when we listen to these clips.
For the next 13 weeks, I am asking.
Why is he so quiet? Come on, sir. Speak up if you got something so important to say. All right, I'll boost him.
And so as we continue forward, for the next 13 weeks, I am asking you to put your shoulder in the work to make sure that we defeat Mike Rogers, we defeat and send a blow to Trumpism, and we do the work of building that next 250 years that all of us deserve, because at some point...
Again, the same rhetoric as Bernie, right? We got to defeat Trumpism and get the next 250 years that we deserve.
Whether you know them or you don't, the future will ask you, what did you do in this moment? For me, it looks like two little girls, ethnically half Indian like their mom, ethnically half Egyptian like me, 100% American. And I want to tell them, when they ask, that I got to work.
I mean, sure, he cannot use it, but my thing is, it's not just that the people don't know Yerger. I think that this guy doesn't know. Is my assertion is that this is someone also who is false consciousness.
So that we could hand it off to them and all of their kids and grandkids. Ask yourself what we could be if we treated all our kids like they were all our kids. Ask yourself what it would mean when it comes to where we spend our tax dollars, about the schools we build, the health care we provide, the opportunities we would want. And for the next 13 weeks and the next 6 years after that, I'm asking you to join me in helping to build that America. So with that, we should know who the victor will be tomorrow. And the work starts anew. And so for one last time for this primary, money out of? Money in your? Medicare for? Let's go win. Thank you so much.
Money out of politics. Money in your pocket. Medicare for all. There you go. That's it. Stealth socialism. And then here, what does he say here?
To all of our incredible supporters here.
This one's even quiet. Oh, no.
What a race. You know, in the words of Muhammad Ali, we shook up the world. And I want to say, just first and foremost,
hey, cappuccino.
how grateful I am for the opportunity to participate in democracy. Now, my family immigrated to this country from a place where there is not democracy. You cannot just put your hand up and run.
My family immigrated from a place there is no democracy. Now, when his father left, that is true, which is his father left Egypt in 1978. But before 1970, you know, it was President Nasser.
There is not democracy. You cannot just put your hand up and run. And
what happened to him, chat?
To have our voices heard, to select our leaders, it is a gift that sometimes we take for granted. So to have participated means so much. To all of our incredible supporters here, what a race. You know, in the words of Muhammad Ali, we shook up the world.
He left to go to the place where the coup plotters lived. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. See, so he says, my family immigrated to this place from a country where there is no democracy. You cannot just put your hand up and run. The ability to have our voices heard, to select our leaders. Who can just put their hand up and run? Like, again, you know, it's just... there's people that have raised hundreds of thousands of dollars and they can't actually participate for this or that other fucking reason, right? Okay, let's hear another clip from the class-conscious candidate here.
Well, as you well know...
Jesus. The fucking volumes are all over the place. Okay, sorry about that.
Well, as you well know, ICE has nothing to do with the southern border. That's Customs and Border Protection. I believe in a secure border. I also believe in immigration enforcement, but I also believe in not shooting Americans in the back of the head and the face.
I believe in a secure border. Like, again, like, You tell me when we're there.
While you're trying to do it. And maybe it's because I've served in government agencies, but once a government agency like that is told that it has impunity to do the worst things and violate the highest law of the land, which is the Constitution itself, I don't think you can reform or retrain that. I think we need to start from scratch. And ICE is not very old. It's 15 years younger than I am. It was it was a bad experiment. It's been weaponized to do the worst things. And I think we need to abolish it and start from scratch, perhaps going back to something like the INS, which for a very long time very capably enforced immigration policy without, of course, shooting Americans and violating our civil liberties. Well,
Larson says, if history will be the judge and nobody can be good, what the hell are we doing? I'm not saying... What do you mean, nobody can be good? I'm giving people the alternative to bourgeois politics right here, Larson. You can go, if you prefer somebody who uncritically celebrates this as a victory for the proletariat in the United States, every other stream right now, today, is doing that. I'll just point out, right? Every other single stream right now, I'm probably one of a couple. If we've got other Tank Tube members streaming right now, it would apply to them as well. But I'm probably one of a couple who would even view this with any criticism. I made way for Virgo, don't worry. So when somebody says something like this to me, if history will be the judge and nobody can be good, what the hell are we doing? It's something bad. I'm telling people what we're doing. I'm giving people the alternative. I'm explaining to people the Marxist-Leninist criticism and the Marxist-Leninist strategy, the Marxist-Leninist answer to this. So I am explaining what we're doing. I don't believe that nobody can be good, but I do believe this system is designed to work the way it does for imperialists. It is unable to be reformed from the inside, no matter how good of language we get in here. So again, every other stream right now on this site is celebrating this uncritically as a win. I will not be doing that. The other thing that I will say is we walk and it will take time. Yes, we walk and it will take time. And it takes everybody playing their role, including us revolutionaries playing their role. And so I'm trying to explain to my other Marxist-Leninist comrades who have run up into these contradictions so many times before, like I have, for the past 20 years now, that I'm giving them the strategy that not only me as an individual has learned, but also organizing in a party that has been proving across countries for many, many years now. And miracles are not uncanny or unpredictable. Miracles are created by the people.
As you well know, ICE has nothing to do with the southern border. That's Customs and Border Protection.
So anyway, he's saying, let's go back to something like the INS, which for a very long time capably enforced immigration policy without shooting Americans and violating our civil liberties. All for the secure border. It's fine when it's violating the civil liberties of the native people whose nations the borders crossed. That's fine. You know, INS, that never hurt anybody. Famously. It's also kind of frustrating. I don't see many of these progressives vocal on the indigenous struggles inside America too. Like I see them tokenizing Palestine but silent on indigenous peoples in America. I think I saw a video of ICE agents arresting an indigenous teenager or a young woman some weeks ago, and another arresting a grandmother. So their take on policing and border issues, trying to make themselves sound reasonable, is the biggest red flag. Exactly. Which is why I pointed out those people whose nations were crossed by the borders of the United States, right? Okay, and then let's hear what he says here. This is foreign military aid.
Look, I just don't believe in unconditional foreign military aid.
Okay, so that's key. He's not saying he doesn't believe in military aid. He's not saying he's going to get money out of sending weapons to other countries. He's saying,
look, I just don't believe in unconditional foreign military aid.
He's not even saying accountable. He's saying unconditional. He's just saying that the military aid has to come with conditions. He agrees with the US sending military aid to various vassals, etc. It just has to be conditional.
Look, I just don't believe in unconditional foreign military aid. That includes Egypt. That also includes Israel, but it also includes Egypt, where my family immigrated from. And to me, that's because I believe that our kids have a right to our tax dollars, that I'm about 10 minutes away from schools that look like they did 50 years ago. Our money should be spent here rather than sent in the form of bombs or tanks to foreign governments, particularly when they're doing the most heinous things with them, as is the
I'm not for any intervention from the outside.
Case with the government of Israel.
You should try tuning in a bit more.
International law, and I think we need to hold all.
Chat, would I be for a revolution from the outside? Is that even possible? No. An egg cracked from the outside is lunch. An egg cracked from the inside is new life. We know this.
Foreign actors accountable to that international law. We've watched as Israel has conducted a genocide, has at baseline done apartheid, and has taken us into a war we have no business fighting. So why, of course, are we sending money to that country to fund their military? Look.
See? Now, so he's saying conditional military aid. It's important to remember that. All we're doing here, I'm just going to remind comrades again. We're remembering that this comrade has this guy, Abdul, he has false consciousness. He is an opportunist, not out of malice, not out of ill heart or something like this. He's an opportunist because he has false consciousness and thinks that his strategy is the best way to serve people or whatever else. And what we're doing is what Stalin advised us to do so long ago. He advised us that the bourgeois Democrats, he's a Democrat, have always advanced and still advance all sorts of slogans in order to deceive the people. The point is to test their sincerity, to compare their words with their deeds, not to be satisfied with idealistic or charlatan phrases, but to get down to the class reality. That doesn't say wait until after he gets elected and see what he does. Because as you can see, like, we're just cracking the surface of it, but we're examining whether we can glean what the class reality is of his politics. Because it doesn't matter how well-intentioned a candidate is. If we put aside the fact that they're restricted by the bounds of the bourgeois system that they're trying to work under, if we put that aside for a second, we also have to understand that we can actually glean things from their own policies, from their own words, from even their slogans. And we can get some hints about their class reality from that. And that's all we're doing here. And I'm inviting my comrades in chat to come along with me and to do that. So I understand your concern, Larson, and I just want to say, like I say, there's lots of other comrades out there celebrating this. I'm not shitting on them, but it is our job. If somebody wasn't there critiquing Bernie Sanders, so many people wouldn't have gotten correct on Bernie Sanders. If someone like myself, if I didn't hear Michael Parenti give that criticism of Bernie Sanders so many years ago, who knows how long I could have got stuck in social democratic bullshit. It's people doing our job, that helps people become more class conscious, that helps encourage more people get organized with groups like PSL. That's our job. That's our job as revolutionaries, to go amongst the people and try and raise their class consciousness. And that's all we're trying to do. We're just trying to inject that class consciousness into people, so that when they do run up against the limitations of him trying to carry out these things in a reformist strategy. They aren't just left with no conclusions. They aren't just left with the most prominent thing yapping in their ear, which will be fascists. Because we're just a tiny segment, right? Because the fascism is purposely constantly reproduced under this state system. Whereas communism, it's constantly censored. Right? We don't get published like Hassan does in magazines and shit. We just get ignored. FRSO, I think FRSO is good to organize with. If you're on the East Coast, maybe CPUSA even does better work, even though they have some struggles going on internally. Even they are, there's a struggle to be done in there because they're Democratic centralists. Workers' World Party on the East Coast as well can be a little more active. I really like Workers' World Party, and I find their positions to be good too. And this is why I say this. Because we have, for Marxist-Leninists, it's an uphill battle where we're always in the minority. Even at the moment of revolution, we are in the minority. Think about Cuba. There was 50 Marxist-Leninists at the time of their revolution.
New tip from someone.
Right?
Someone supported with 5.
And that's why we have to be kind of loud about it as well at the same time. Thank you so much, someone. I appreciate the 5. I appreciate that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That means a ton. So I hope that makes sense. We're not shitting on anybody here. But what we do is we separate the democratic, we separate the reformists and the entryists from those people who still don't understand what the Marxist-Leninist strategy fully is. Who might not have even heard this before. That's all, right? Jesus Christ. Holy shit, what the fuck? Yerger, Larson, thank you so much, comrade. Jesus, 75 gift subs? Pfft. Holy fuck, comrade. Thank you so much. And yeah, I mean, before the gift subs come, know that I'm not hostile towards you. I'm just giving you our position as Marxist-Leninists. Thank you so much, comrade. I appreciate that support. Holy fuck. Thank you, thank you. That's incredible. I feel like I should play a song. Should we do a little musical break that will maybe... let's inject some... I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Perhaps we should inject some revolutionary enthusiasm into this, and then we will continue talking about this again. Again, this is not meant to shit or crap on anybody celebrating this, because even us Marxist-Leninists recognize it as a way to celebrate in a sense, just in a different way. We don't celebrate him being elected as the victory, but we celebrate him being elected as now the masses will have new practical experience that allows us to have them at a new stage that we can work with them at. If that makes sense. So we celebrate it. We celebrate it with conditions, if you will. All right, I'm going to do a song. It says it does say level 10 because Comrade just dropped an immense amount of gift subs on her heads. I'm a little bit flabbergasted. If it's not a new record, it's sure as hell close. See, this is what gives me optimism. Is knowing that the masses are being more and more pushed towards that fresh October, and large portions of them will come and organize with us. They'll put their resources with us and build institutions that aren't reliant on someone getting elected in the next bourgeois cycle. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Thank you. The meaning of this song is so deep, too. Any one of you, the Lex Lenin, could be amongst us. Young October is ahead. Yes, next gen Lennons, please step forward. And I understand some people's desire to want to project that on someone like Abdul. But we have to understand they're not going to come as an independent individual actor for the DNC. I guess that's my overall point. They're going to come connected to an ideological position that is strong. Even if they do use flowery language when giving interviews, they will have a well-known, solid ideological position because they will be in a party. It's why I celebrated like Claudia de la Cruz in a way that I am not celebrating this electoral victory, if you will. Yes! He's at the door talking and making noises at the door. He's a very needy kid. What? He's
been sitting by you for a while there.
Yep, Mumes is here. Hey, Bobby. All right. Yeah, that came up just randomly. All right, shall we continue what we're looking at? And thank you again, comrades, so much for that support. That means a ton. How can you get banned in 2 channels just speed running it? JFK rotting. And it's always some like anti-Semitic shit too. That this No, not this person that I get the same troll all day long. Okay, we got Glenn Greenwald as well. Oh, I get the same anti-Semitic troll all day long, comrades. You get used to it. This, again, is what, like I was saying, this is the basis of what all of this is about. America needs to declare its independence from Israel every bit as much as they declared their independence from England. Amazing. It's just that statement is very poetic for those Gerald Horne enjoyers of us here. Like, what? Huh? It's ironic in a way because, like, America declared independence from England so that it could expand its own imperial project. Remember? Manifest Destiny? preserving the slave trade, that sort of thing. And then AOC comes out and says, I appreciate AIPAC proving it doesn't belong in the Dem party and especially our primaries. Because this is gonna stop. See, this will be it. Again, if they get AIPAC out of the Democratic Party, what it will prove to a lot of people is that hasn't solved anything. Right? That's what we understand. And that's why we really have to be there talking about this shit. From endorsing a January 6 members to ensuring Congress remains hands of a 34-count felon, AIPAC is an org committed to undermining democracy at home and abroad. See you in November. And then, again, this here defeated AIPAC. The numbers, like I was saying before, what I see when I look at these numbers are just how abysmal the turnout is. Which is, again, something that I think we have to, I think people are, see, when you gift subs, you go fishing. You're gonna catch a lot of fish, comrade. You're gonna have a lot of fucking fish under your belt in a minute. That's why it's me responding to you. You're getting AK-47s, drawings of fishes. You're getting beer bottles. See, look, there's an AK-47 you just fished up. You're gonna be top of the leaderboard this month. The other chatters are gonna be hard pressed to keep up with you this month. So again, when I look at this, I just think about how there's like, what, 8 million registered voters? And between the two of them, they've got a little over 1 million people that are participating in this vote. Right? And this is one where people were more energized than usual. It had a lot of buzz around this particular election, which shows you just like it's abysmal. That's why they're so keen to rescue the Democratic Party. But let's hear what this guy thinks about it. I don't know. I never heard of this guy before, but apparently he's on C-SPAN, so he must know a thing or two about politics, I guess. So we're gonna hear what this strange fella has to say about the situation.
I'm here today to continue the revolutionary practice of fighting for democracy, which unfortunately in 2026 is almost like a dying art. So we're carrying that flame, and we're hoping that we can continue carrying that flame into the general election.
He's carrying the flame.
I think Abdul centered the needs of the working class so perfectly in his policies. But in many respects, his run didn't start yesterday. His run didn't start 6 months ago. His run started in 2018 when he ran on a Medicare for All ticket in the gubernatorial race. And I guess the people were not ready for it now, ready for it back then, but they're certainly ready for it now.
The people weren't ready for healthcare back then. The analysis is just so cooked. The people are begging for healthcare. They've been begging for healthcare for a long time. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's just such a bad analysis. The people weren't ready for healthcare, I guess, before. That's why it wasn't voted in. Like, again, Obama ran on like a Medicare for All platform. People have been begging for healthcare.
The people were not ready for it now, ready for it back then, but they're certainly ready for it now, it seems.
Means for the Democratic Party, regardless of the result?
I think what this race means for the Democratic Party is changes are coming. And I'm glad that they weren't ready for it.
And today in a press conference, Haley Stevens said that she condemned your rhetoric and doesn't know why Abdul is.
No, RCS, this is really key. This is actually really key. His understanding of the people is through polls and voter turnout data. Yes. And that's the problem with politics streams right now. This is why we created TankTube. Because we realized that when you even say politics, right? Just saying that word politics here, or looking at the politics tab here on looking at the politics tab here on Twitch, you will see 99% of the people are essentially doing electoral politics. It's basically like, there's exceptions, of course, obviously, but it's basically just like TankTube that is doing this different style of politics that is talking about geopolitics, and then when it talks internally, it talks about organizing, like trying to encourage people to organize PSL and alternative ways of organizing. We spend very little time as a group, as a team, talking about electoral politics. Right? So that's kind of what it is. We're in that uphill battle, I realize. So that's why I say we kind of need to spread in a way like the TankTube team and get it more visibly known, which is some of our comrades on there kind of fill that role for us, which is where Comrade Yugopnik comes in for us, you know?
What do you have to say to that?
Yeah, I think it's very sad that her closing message ended up focusing on a Twitch streamer. That was an extremely online thing that she did, and perhaps that's the reason why these expected results might have been unexpected for her. She thought that centering these sorts of issues in the heart of her campaign would potentially help her seize victory. But Abdul never ran on these sorts of drama-focused issues. He ran on kitchen table issues. He ran on improving people's lives. And it turns out that's exactly what people of Michigan were looking for. And we're going to prove that.
People of Michigan. By that, he means a million people. 1.1 million.
And you've
out
been
of 8.
in Wisconsin and other places. Have you been seeing more younger people out of the
It's just it's just when I think about that voter turnout, I just think about all of those people that are so disenfranchised, they just don't even want to hear any of it.
There is so much more youth involvement in these races. It was actually Debbie Dingell who called it out when she visited our University of Michigan Ann Arbor campaign.
Basically, it's like talking to a staffer.
All the way back in, I believe,
you know what I mean? And this is why I would say, like, politics on Twitch is kind of like this niche thing for people that are into bourgeois politics. People that are into, like, that staffer talk, right? I've never been into that. I'm like, real talk with you right now. I was always a blue-collar worker, right? Like, I did insulation my entire life. So the last thing I wanted to do was come home and try and figure out what the fuck NDP is saying versus what the fucking Liberal Party is saying, because you can't figure out which one is lying, which one isn't lying. Then by the time they get in, none of them like fulfill their promises, etc., etc. Like, I was in that position as like a blue collar worker, so I was never interested in bourgeois politics like that. So in a sense, like, I almost never had an interest in politics until I discovered that politics wasn't that, and it was like actual struggle against that type of politics. Because that type of politics is just a Congress, the managing of bourgeois affairs. It can be nothing but a committee for managing the affairs of the bourgeoisie. That's all the democratic body of the United States can be, because that's what it's set up to be.
She attended that, and she told the Associated Press, I've never seen this many young people this excited for a candidate this far out from a Senate primary race. And honestly, there's a good reason for that. I can't take credit for that.
See, it's like here, like I don't know about you all. Maybe comrades in chat now know what's happening, but when we get to this part of the video, he could be talking a language I don't understand at this point. Right? And like it would make a difference because I don't even know what the fuck he's saying at this point in the video.
In the heart of her campaign would potentially help her seize victory. But Abdul,
I just want to hear that part again.
These sorts of drama-focused issues. He ran on kitchen table issues. He ran on improving people's lives. And it turns out that's exactly what people of Michigan were looking for. And we're going to prove that once again in the general.
Okay, here we go.
Michigan, Wisconsin, other places, have you been seeing more younger people out at the polls, and how much of a difference?
Absolutely. There is so much more youth involvement in these races. It was actually Debbie Dingell who called it out when she visited our University of Michigan Ann Arbor campaign rally that we did many, many months ago, all the way back in, I believe, April. She attended that, and she told the Associated Press, I've never seen this many young people this excited for a candidate this far out from a Senate primary race.
I never saw this many people this excited. And again, the turnout was, what was the turnout again, did we say? 600,000? 650 something vote. Like I say, it was like 1.2 million, I think, that voted for the Democrat votes, including both sides, not just Abdul.
I'm only a megaphone for the anger and the resentment that a lot of people feel.
That's the best? That's the most. The most energized people have been, and it's like a small fraction of a turnout. Just like, this isn't like cluing anybody in to the fact that bourgeois politics, even the masses aren't there. And that's what's funny, I guess, about like kind of, I guess, where I see the disconnect between Hassan's like analysis and where people are actually at. And I think this comes from him being, I'm sorry to say, terminally online, or when he's not terminally online, he's making content for online. Oh, he's like out in the world, but making content for online. So he's not really engaging with the world around him. Like that interaction with Chairman Africa, I think, really beautifully highlights, right? So he's like the chatter said earlier, he sees the poll numbers and he sees that kind of like the data like that, but he's not like contextualizing it. As in, like, what it's actually showing is how disenfranchised and dissatisfied people are with the system as a whole. That they, even as in their most energized moment, the turnout is still abysmal. That should say something to you. Those should be the people that Marxist-Leninists should be trying to reach.
Abdul's policies. It was Abdul's campaign that brought them out first and foremost. But luckily, he was the right guy for the right time. Anything else I like to say? Being pro-Israel is bad policy and bad politics, and we're proving that tonight once again.
And see, like, and I like how he's just like kind of falling in line with this as well. The being pro-Israel. How about like connecting Israel to imperialism? That's just gone. All of that is gone. The connection that connecting it to imperialism is just like, we threw that out the window, huh? Let's listen to this clip. What? Oh yeah. Okay. Hold on. I just want to hear this clip here. Let's see if we can glean more from this interview.
Because you have a new... Let me ask you about democratic socialism. Because you have a new ad with AOC in the ad. You're very close to Bernie Sanders. You've had a number of these very popular officials come out and campaign for you. You've also said that you're not a democratic socialist. You describe yourself as a capitalist who understands capitalism. I believe that's what you said last night in the debate. But What is the difference? What are they getting wrong? I think this is confusing to a lot of people. What are they getting wrong about capitalism, or why don't you consider yourself a member of the Democratic Socialist movement, given your proximity and your relationship to all of these officials?
Because I'm simply not a socialist. I believe in science. For me, it's you got to bring results. I've studied a lot of the solutions that I fight for, things like Medicare for all, things like rethinking the way that our financial system implies that corporate CEOs are more interested in a quarterly bottom line than they are in the long-term sustainability of their business. The fact that we virtually live in monopoly or oligopoly when it comes to almost every single market that we are forced to participate in. I know that capitalism works. I just know that it does not work when you have monopolies or oligopolies. You go back and you actually look at the folks who coined the term capitalism, they'll tell you that the biggest risk to capitalism was not government regulation. It was always monopoly and oligopoly, which is exactly what we have here now.
So I wonder if we can glean anything about his class position from that, or like where he stands in regards to class politics there. Right? I mean, I'm gonna allow this mention of the name that shall not be mentioned, BMO, because yes, I think that is what was said. I mean, again, here, this even, and you might say, oh, well, that's because he was on a more reactionary thing. Well, even on NPR, he's saying the same thing as well. He's saying he does not identify as a socialist. He calls himself a capitalist. While he is not endorsed by Democratic Socialists of America, whose candidates have won races this primary season, he holds some similar positions. He supports abolishing ICE, for example. He was up against Stevens, a four-term congresswoman who flipped a suburban House seat in 2014 and served on the team President Obama tasked with rescuing the auto industry in 2008-2009 recession. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting to see. Again, maybe you can glean something about the politics from that. And then there was also this. Abdul says he disagrees with Hassan Piker on China. Rips game of policing past statements. When asked what issues he disagrees with Piker on, Al-Sayed lists issues related to China and the future of cars. Among Piker's past controversial statements, he at one point declared he doesn't have a problem with terrorist group Hezbollah. When O'Keefe mentioned this statement, Saeed added to the list of disagreements, "Those are things he and I are going to disagree on." And then here's the most fun one for me, was this one here. TrackUkraine.com, Abdul for Senate. Dr. Abdul El-Sayed supports Ukraine, receiving critical assistance. He supports military aid, checkmark. He condemns the Russian invasion, and he supports sanctions on the Russian military war machine. So again, I guess there's those conditions for the military aid, right? Let's look at his actual politics. So we got banning corporate money. How's he going to do that? To get corporate and special interest money out of politics, I support legislation to overturn the Citizens United Supreme Court decision. In addition, I support banning outside spending through corporate 501(c) PACs, super PACs, and 527 groups. I also support public election funding and campaign spending caps. So he wants elections to be entirely funded by the people. We have to fund our own goddamn. You have to fund your own goddamn bourgeois democracy, right? You gotta fund your own bourgeois goddamn democracy. It's still not gonna work for you. But you gotta fund it. And you watch what we're still gonna be doing here. This is when it gets better, right? That's the interesting part, is how it's kind of like doing it for itself. So this is what it means by banning money in politics. It's like doing mod work for the streamer and still paying for subs. Yeah, Frank, something like that. Ending gerrymandering, Supreme Court reform, ending lifetime appointments, imposing term limits. Oh, we know how much that improves everything. The same number of appointments for each presidential term. You know, that'll fix the Supreme Court if these ghouls only serve for 5 years at a time. Ending the filibuster. Don't even give a Making voting in the bourgeois elections easier. Right. Civil liberties. What do we got here? I believe in the freedom of speech, the freedom of assembly, and the freedom of and from religion, and the freedom of self-expression. Beautiful. I believe that the right to speak out against your government's actions and peacefully protest against them are sacrosanct. And I stand against the weaponization of the state to stamp out or intimidate peaceful protests. He's for the good things. He's for abolishing ICE and replacing it with a different department, as we know. I really want to get to the foreign policy as the thing I care about most. Because the problem, like, this is great, right? Sure, it's all great that he supports environment and natural resources. It's great that he supports improving water quality. My problem with this, though, again, is that none of that can be addressed if imperialism isn't addressed. So let's look at the foreign policy, shall we? After the devastation of World War II, our country led the international community to build organizations that would protect civilians from the disasters of war. We should lead the world to protect democracy, prosperity, and peace. He just said do more imperialism. He's literally saying do more imperialism right here. Right here, he's saying do more imperialism. Perhaps unconsciously, perhaps unwittingly, but this is a request for the US to continue doing imperialism. We got to continue protecting democracy, prosperity, and peace, like it did when it bombed Yugoslavia for 80 days and nights. Remember? We ensure security at home and abroad by standing with our democratic allies and engaging in a foreign policy that centers diplomacy, cooperation, and human rights. Notice how other countries don't do that? Do you notice how Russia and China don't do that? That our foreign policy centers other people's democratic right. It centers other people's democracy, right? We'll you don't see DPRK going, we're going to protect their democracy in this other country or whatever like that. They say we're going to respect their sovereignty. Because you can't have democracy if you don't have sovereignty. And so he says, when we act, and here it goes. It's going to get worse. You thought I was joking. But he literally says, we ensure security at home and abroad by standing with their democratic allies and engaging in a foreign policy that centers diplomacy, cooperation, and human rights. When we act in the interests of human rights and democracy, as in supporting Ukraine. So he's saying everything that the US has done in supporting Ukraine against Russia, against the Russian invasion, is acting in the interests of human rights and democracy. I want to bring up an issue of the Tanky Times from yesterday. just briefly. I'm just going to briefly bring up an issue from yesterday of the Tanky Times. This one. Because I recommend you have a look at this article here. From Workers' World Party. I'm going to link this to you. This is detailing fascist Ukraine versus anti-fascist Ukraine. Where you have 92 anti-fascist political prisoners in Ukraine today starting their hunger strike. And they're hunger striking inside of a Ukrainian detention facility, being held as political prisoners. They're staging a one-day hunger strike against the torture that they are being subjected to right now in Ukraine, where there are currently more than 50,000 political prisoners, people in prison for political views, anti-war stances, or anti-fascist activities. And in addition to that, 150,000 people are being persecuted for desertion, evasion of mandatory military service, refusal to participate in war, etc. So the total number of people under investigation or facing criminal charges exceeds 200,000. As I pointed out yesterday, an example of one of these penal colonies is penal colony number 122 in Pryatikhaty and penal colony number 86 in Vinnytsia, where in these institutions, the political prisoners are systematically deprived of their rights and human dignity. According to prisoners, administrators, and according to the prisoners, administrators and prison staff refer to them disparagingly as a slur for Roma people that I'm not going to say out loud. A term that conveys a sense of total powerlessness. They are nobody, they have no rights, and anything can be done to them. Political prisoners live without hot water or heating. They are forced to sleep in rooms that resemble pigsties, as the facilities are not properly equipped. They are forced to work 12 hours a day. For 1 month of this forced labor, they receive approximately €4. All of this documented in official records. Even the death of a political prisoner has no real legal consequences for prison administration. The dehumanization of the political prisoners creates an atmosphere of total impunity for those in authority in which neither the health nor the lives of the prisoner are valued, such as those of the two communist brothers, Mikhail and Alexandra Kononovich, who have been sentenced to 10 years in prison. They've been kidnapped. They've been beaten nearly to death. But but by all means, it's okay though, everybody. He only wants to continue the current wars, right? No new wars, he said. We got to connect that, because you got to understand how Ukraine is serving the same interests as Israel. So how can you be anti-Israel and pro-Ukraine fascism? You can't. Because this is the thing that I was trying to point out about Ukraine being more willing to go independent as well. Of course they are more willing to go independent, right? Why wouldn't they? They can buy weapons from Ukraine that is looking to get more licenses for building American weapons and other European weapons. It can look to Germany. So how can you, so you're going to be sending weapons to Ukraine for its illegal invasion against Russia, which are then going to be sold and shared with Israel. It's so ridiculous. This is why you can't oppose Israel without opposing imperialism. This is what China understands that this man does not. that you cannot impose you can't oppose the corporate powers or the corporate money. You can't even oppose Israel without opposing imperialism. In order for Israel to ultimately end its settler colonial genocidal reign, its existence as that entity, imperialism has to be defeated. Toxic Zangoose, thank you so much for the subby. Appreciate your support. So he says, when we act in the interests of human rights and democracy, as in supporting Ukraine against Russian invasion, we find ourselves on the right side of justice. It says you're subbed, Kami. It's when we break the rules we work so hard to set up, as in Vietnam, Iraq, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, or Palestine, that we make critical, deadly mistakes. I notice Korea's not on that list. Call me a perfectionist, but I notice Korea is explicitly not listed there. Neither is China, but okay. The war against Korea is still ongoing. He says, I oppose the illegal and unjustifiable war on Iran and demand an immediate end to the hostilities. While I oppose a nuclear-armed Iran, I understand that diplomatic means of achieving that goal are far more effective and come with a far lower human cost, just as President Obama had achieved under the JCPOA. Comrades, this is just Obama. This is just an Obama politician. I oppose the warlike pathway that the foreign policy established has pursued with China. Our competition with China is not fated towards kinetic war. Where we compete, it should be with our research, development, and economic power, building solutions to the problems of the future. Compete? It's gonna get worse. The next sentence hurts me. While we must insist that China play by the rules when it comes to trade and intellectual property. It's a fucking lie that they don't. China abides by international laws and rules and intellectual property far more than the fucking US does. We must also recognize that our shared futures are better when we cooperate with each other for the benefit of all our people, rather than compete in a zero-sum arms race that makes us all less safe. Okay, well that part sounds nice. How about the next part? We have maintained a policy of strategic ambiguity with China on the question of Taiwan for decades. The future of Taiwan should be a matter for the Taiwanese to choose through democratic means. But, there's a but, in recognition of the possible risks, we must continue to onshore critical national security assets, such as chip manufacturing. What? So we want to end the strategic we want the future of China to be the future of Taiwan to be decided through democratic means, but in recognition of the possible risks, we will continue to onshore critical national security assets. I believe that in an era where our schools are crumbling and healthcare is unaffordable, we should be spending our taxpayer dollars here at home. That's why I oppose direct blank check funding to foreign militaries, including Egypt, Israel, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and others. Not end that funding, right? Just not blank check. It needs conditions. It's got to come with the conditions, you see. Right now, our tax dollars and American-made weapons are being used to perpetrate a genocide in Gaza, illegal settlements in the West Bank and Jerusalem, and attempt the annexation of southern Lebanon. That must end. I support immediate and comprehensive enforcement of U.S. laws that condition the provision of military aid and sales. And again, Israel is already prepared for this. They say, sure, go ahead. And to support an immediate arms embargo on Israel and reject a false differentiation between offensive and defensive weapons. As a physician and epidemiologist, I understand that global threats can quickly become local threats. And when we fail to tackle health and humanitarian threats, where they present themselves abroad, they can land in our neighborhood. Helping to diminish deprivation and diseases abroad isn't just charity. It's important for our own safety and prosperity. He's saying, bring back USAID. That's why I support the immediate reinvestment in foreign aid, including UNRWA. And that right there for me, again, is a Marxist-Leninist, is another red flag. Foreign aid while you're sending weapons at the same time to Ukraine. Okay? So the fact that it would still be sending weapons to Ukraine unconditionally to the UAE and these other vassal states proves that it still would be an imperialist power, right? So then let's hear what Thomas Sankara says about aid and about debt when it comes to imperialist countries. Because aid often also comes with debt as well. So we're going to look at both of these. Right here. I feel like both of these quotes have to be read together. Imperialism is a system of exploitation that occurs not only in the brutal form of those who come with guns to conquer territory. Imperialism often occurs in more subtle forms. A loan, food aid, blackmail. We are fighting this system that allows a handful of men on Earth to rule all of humanity. Under its current form, that is imperialism controlled, debt is cleverly managed reconquest of Africa, aiming at subjugating its growth and development through foreign rules. Thus, each one of us becomes the financial slave, which is to say, a true slave. So the lack of support for countries' sovereignty, the literal outward professing to aid in securing democracy around the world, and of reinvesting in foreign aid tells me that this is not a policy of the working class. This is a policy of rescuing neoliberalism from the current faction of the bourgeoisie. So one faction of the bourgeoisie thinks that the current strategy is going to leave imperialism into a path that it can't get out of. And in order to keep imperialism going just a little bit longer, they need to switch back to that neoliberal strategy. Offer some crumbs to quiet the front at home, while at the same time they can basically recenter their strategy around that soft power strategy again. But this is just a strategy. The reason why I said at the very beginning of this talk why I don't think this would even lead to a new economic deal again is because the other countries aren't going for this anymore. The other countries are becoming more and more and more unwilling to accept US aid. They're looking more to China, looking more to Russia for their help. So I don't even think that they would be able to get the New Deal. It's just a toleration for this rhetoric. And that's why I celebrate this moment as a measurement of where the masses are at, but I don't celebrate this moment as this individual winning this primary election. Does that make sense? And that's where we stand as Marxist-Leninists on Abdul for US Senate. Even now, before he's even in office. Yes, even before we wait to see what he does. Because I assert, as I always do, like with Bernie and with Zoran before this, that we can tell what they're going to do by getting down to the class reality that we just examined in this discussion here, seeing what that class reality is by thinking about the dialectical relation between the slogans that he's putting forward and what the conclusion of those slogans are in the context of imperialism and its relations with these other countries. So what we have here is a Democrat trying to save the reputation of the Democratic Party. We did it, Stalin. The bourgeois Democrats have always advanced and still advance all sorts of slogans in order to deceive the people. The point is to test their sincerity, compare their words with their deeds, and not to be satisfied with idealistic and charlatan phrases, but to get down to the class reality. And I hope that this did help you do that a little bit. I want to read this to you as well, because I think that this will go along. Oh, my sound alerts are busted, comrades. Be careful redeeming stuff. My sound alerts are not fucking working for some reason. And I will smoke a joint. I'll choose drugs. Here, wait, I'll do this. Wait, where is it? Oh no, I don't have my choose drugs clip. I don't have my choose drugs clip in here for some reason. Damn. What the fuck? Okay, we'll do this one instead then. What we have here is
liberal, 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 liberal. Happy fun, la la la. Human smuggling, fentanyl gas. Happy fun, la la la. Human smuggling, fentanyl gas. Liberal. Liberal. Happy fun, la la la. Human smuggling, fentanyl gas. Happy fun, la la la. Human smuggling, fentanyl gas. Liberal.